Lena slid into the empty seat beside Marcus on the downtown train, her hand brushing his as she returned the leather notebook that had slipped from his bag. "This fell?" she said simply, her smile warm and unforced. Marcus blinked, the quiet lines around his eyes softening for the first time that morning. He had spent the ride staring at his phone, replaying the argument with his boss over missed numbers that weren't his fault. Her smile cut through it. "Thanks," he managed, voice low. They sat in the shared silence of strangers who suddenly weren't, the train rocking past stations without either checking the time. Lena mentioned her shift ending early at the hospital kitchen, how the smell of bleach still clung to her scrubs. Marcus nodded, admitting the notebook held sketches he drew during lunch breaks instead of reports. A small laugh escaped him when she asked if the drawings were of buildings or faces. For those few minutes the car felt lighter, two people seeing each other without the usual hurry. Then the train halted between stops. For armed guards in dark uniforms entered from the connecting car, rifles held ready, eyes scanning passengers. They moved straight toward Lena and Marcus, boots heavy on the floor. The nearest guard barked an order to stand. Marcus rose slowly, notebook clutched tight, while Lena stayed seated, her expression shifting from surprise to steady calm. The guard demanded identification, claiming a report of suspicious activity near the financial district. Marcus's hands trembled as he pulled out his wallet. Lena spoke first, asking what exactly they had done. Her voice carried no fear, only the same directness she had used minutes earlier. The guards separated them, one pair questioning Marcus about his sketches, another pressing Lena on her route that day. Passengers watched in frozen silence. Marcus felt the old weight of being overlooked press back in. Yet Lena's earlier smile lingered in his mind, anchoring him. He answered each question without raising his voice, describing the lunch sketches as harmless. Lena did the same, explaining her hospital job and the train change she took every Thursday. Tension thickened as the guards cross-checked phones and bags, minutes stretching. A fifth guard arrived with a radio update, and the group conferred in low tones. Marcus caught Lena's glance across the car. She gave the smallest nod, the same steady presence from their brief exchange. The lead guard finally lowered his weapon an inch, radio crackling with new instructions. They released the bags but kept the pair under watch as the train resumed. Marcus exhaled, the notebook still in his grip. Lena adjusted her bag strap, the smile returning faintly when their eyes met again. The car moved forward, carrying them past the next station while the guards remained posted at either end. The guards stepped closer, boots scraping against the subway floor. Lena glanced at the quiet man, whose shoulders had gone rigid. He released a slow breath, eyes fixed ahead. "They think I'm someone else," he murmured. She shifted in her seat, bag strap digging into her shoulder. The lead guard stopped 2 feet away, radio crackling at his belt. "ID? Now." The man pulled out his wallet without sudden moves, handing over the card. Lena studied his profile, the faint lines around his mouth that spoke of long days and few words. The guard scanned the ID under a small light, then keyed his radio again. Static answered, followed by a clipped voice confirming details. Passengers around them fell quiet, some pretending to scroll phones while stealing looks. The train hummed onward, lights flickering once as it passed through a tunnel section. Lena leaned nearer. "What did you do before this?" she asked softly. He met her gaze, voice steady despite the circle of uniforms tightening. "Drove trucks across state lines. One load got flagged for paperwork issues that weren't mine." The guard lowered the radio. "Step out at the next stop. Both of you." Lena's pulse quickened, but she stayed seated, hand brushing the man's sleeve for a brief second. Empathy flickered between them, born from that earlier smile on the platform when he'd looked like he needed one person not to judge. The car slowed. Guards positioned themselves at the doors. As it halted, the man rose first, motioning for Lena to follow. She did, bag clutched close. On the platform, more armed figures waited. Yet the station felt half empty, echoes bouncing off tiled walls. He spoke again, low. "You don't have to stay. This mixes you in." She shook her head once. "Your eyes said you weren't lying back there. I trust that." They walked side by side toward an exit gate, guards flanking but not touching. A second guard checked the man's hands for weapons, finding none. Tension eased a fraction when the radio crackled with updated orders to verify further at a side office. Inside the small room, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The man sat opposite a desk while Lena took the chair beside him. An officer reviewed records on a screen, revealing the old flag stemmed from a partner's error, not his. Relief washed through Lena as the officer nodded, clearing the immediate alert. The man turned to her, a small smile breaking his quiet reserve. "Thanks for not bolting." She returned it, warmth spreading in her chest. Outside, they exited together into cooler air above ground. He offered to walk her to the bus stop 2 blocks away. Conversation flowed about daily routes and small routines, each detail grounding them after the surge of uncertainty. At the stop, he paused. "Next time, maybe I smile first." She laughed lightly, the sound cutting through lingering nerves. The bus arrived, doors hissing open. She boarded, watching him through the window as it pulled away. He stood watching until it turned the corner, both carrying forward a thread of unexpected connection amid the city's rush. Marcus stepped back from the curb, the bus vanishing around the corner, and checked his watch. He had 20 minutes to reach the warehouse where he sorted packages 6 days a week. The woman's smile stayed with him, not as fantasy but as a brief reminder that not every stranger saw him as invisible. He walked faster, shoulders hunched against the afternoon heat rising from the pavement. Inside the warehouse, the conveyor belt hummed its usual rhythm. Marcus scanned labels, stacking boxes onto pallets. His supervisor, Ray, called out over the noise. "James, that last shipment from the East Dock needs retagging before 5. Marcus nodded, moving without complaint. The work kept his hands busy and his thoughts from drifting too far into what might have been. Around 3, a forklift alarm blared. A pallet had tipped, scattering crates across the floor. Ray swore and pointed. "Everyone clear the aisle until we sort this." Marcus helped lift the heavier boxes, sweat soaking his shirt. One crate cracked open, revealing electronics that looked newer than the usual discount goods. He said nothing, just kept stacking. By quitting time, the mess was cleared. Marcus clocked out and headed for the subway. On the platform, a woman in a gray uniform brushed past him. She looked familiar, but he could not place her until she turned. It was the same woman from the bus stop, now wearing the badge of a private security firm that patrolled the transit lines. Their eyes met. She smiled again, smaller this time, and said, "You made it through the day too." He answered, "Looks like it." They stood side by side as the train arrived. She stepped into the same car without hesitation. They talked quietly during the ride. Her name was Lena. She worked security because the pay covered her mother's medicine and left a little for her own night classes. Marcus mentioned the warehouse and the tipped pallet. Lena asked if anything had seemed off about the cargo. He described the newer electronics and the way Ray had hurried everyone away afterward. Lena's expression tightened. "Sometimes those shipments get flagged downtown. If anyone asks you later, keep it short." The train slowed at her stop. She handed him a folded card with her work number. "Call if something feels wrong." He took it, fingers brushing hers for a second. At his building, Marcus climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. His neighbor, Mrs. Ellison, stood in the hallway holding a grocery bag. "You look tired," she said. He carried the bag to her door and listened while she talked about her grandson's school troubles. The ordinary conversation eased the tightness in his chest. Inside his apartment, he heated leftovers and sat by the window. The card from Lena stayed in his pocket. The next morning began like any other until the knock at the warehouse gate. Two men in dark uniforms entered with Ray. They asked for the manifest from the East Dock shipment. Ray pointed to Marcus. He handled the retagging. The men approached. One held a clipboard. The other rested a hand near his holster. We need you to come with us for a statement. Marcus stayed calm. About what? They did not answer directly. Ray muttered that it was routine and to cooperate. Marcus followed them to a side office where a third guard waited. Lena appeared at the door 5 minutes later, her security badge visible. She spoke to the men in low tones. This one was on the platform yesterday. I can vouch he didn't touch the cargo beyond instructions. The lead guard studied her, then Marcus. Tension held the room still until the man with the clipboard nodded once. We'll need a written account by end of shift. They left without further questions. Ray clapped Marcus on the shoulder afterward. Good you had someone speak up. Marcus finished his shift and called the number on the card. Lena answered on the second ring. Meet me at the corner diner after work, she said. They sat across from each other in a booth, coffee cooling between them. She explained that the electronics shipment had been flagged because it matched a pattern of diverted goods from a larger investigation. You were just in the wrong place at the right time, she told him. He asked why she had helped. Because you didn't look away when I smiled, she answered. They left the diner together, the evening air cooler than the day had been. 2 blocks from the subway entrance, a black van pulled to the curb. The same guards from the warehouse stepped out, now accompanied by city police. One officer called Marcus's name. Lena moved slightly in front of him, voice steady. He already gave his statement. The officer explained they needed him to identify a photo from security footage. Marcus agreed only if Lena could stay. They climbed into the van together. Inside, an officer showed a grainy image of the warehouse floor. Marcus pointed to the man who had directed the forklift earlier that week. That's who loaded the crate. The officer nodded and radioed ahead. The van stopped at a precinct building. Lena waited in the lobby while Marcus signed papers. When he emerged, she handed him a bottle of water. You did fine. They walked toward the station again. Marcus felt the thread from the first smile pull tighter. No longer just memory, but something shared. Lena checked her watch. My shift starts soon, but I can ride one stop with you. On the platform, the crowd pressed close. Marcus kept the folded card in his hand this time, ready if the next day brought another knock. The train doors opened. They stepped inside, the city continuing its rush around them. They pressed close. Marcus kept the folded card in his hand this time, ready if the next day brought another knock. The train doors opened. They stepped inside, the city continuing its rush around them. Elena's shoulder brushed his as the car lurched forward. She didn't speak at first, just watched the passing platforms blur. Marcus unfolded the card again under the fluorescent lights. The single line of text still read the same. Meet at the corner after work. No name, no explanation. The guards had appeared minutes after her smile on the sidewalk. 2 men in dark uniforms, radios crackling, had boxed them in without touching either one. Marcus had felt his pulse hammer against his ribs while Elena stayed perfectly still, her expression calm. One guard had asked for identification, then stepped back when Elena produced a small notebook and showed a page. The men exchanged glances and left. Neither explained why they came. Now on the train, Elena finally said, "They thought I was someone else." Her voice stayed low, steady. Marcus nodded once. He didn't press. The car emptied at the next stop and filled again at the following. He kept the card between his fingers, feeling the edge bite into his skin. At their stop, they walked 2 blocks to the corner mentioned on the card. Plain sedan waited, engine idling. The driver didn't get out. Elena approached the window, spoke briefly, then motioned for Marcus to join her. Inside, the car smelled of old leather and coffee. The driver handed her a second card, identical except for one added word. Tomorrow. Elena read it, then tore both cards in half and dropped the pieces into a storm drain as they walked away. Marcus asked the first real question since the platform. "Why us?" Elena answered without slowing. "Wrong place, right face. Someone higher up needed a distraction and picked the quiet man who never argues with strangers." She glanced at him. "You smiled back. That made it look planned." They reached her building. She paused at the door. "Come up." Not for long. The apartment was small, 2 rooms, a window facing the elevated tracks. She brewed tea without asking if he wanted any and set the mug in front of him. Marcus sat at the table, hands flat on the wood. The tea cooled untouched. Outside, night settled. Distant sirens rose and faded. Elena stood at the window watching the trains pass. "My brother used to ride that line every morning," she said. "He worked security at the courthouse. One day he noticed a pattern in the visitor logs. He wrote it down. Someone found the notebook before he could hand it over." She turned. "They've been watching anyone who knew him. Your quiet routine made you invisible until I smiled." Marcus absorbed the words without interrupting. He thought of his own days, the same route, the same lunch, the same silence. The smile had broken the pattern. Now the pattern was hunting them both. A knock came at the door, 3 short raps. Elena didn't move. Marcus stood and opened it a crack. No one stood on the landing. A 3rd card lay on the mat. He picked it up. The message was longer. "Leave the city by morning." No signature. They packed light. Elena took the notebook from the drawer and slid it into her coat. Marcus carried nothing but his keys and the torn halves of the first cards. They walked to the station instead of the train, bought 2 tickets on the overnight bus heading west. The terminal hummed with late travelers. A man in a gray coat watched them from a bench but didn't follow when they boarded. On the bus, Elena finally slept, head against the window. Marcus stayed awake, counting exits, reading the passing highway signs. At dawn, they reached a small town where the bus line ended. They found a diner still open, ordered eggs and toast, and ate without conversation. The waitress refilled their cups twice. Outside the window, the main street was already waking. Marcus spoke first this time. "We split here. You keep moving. I go back and ask the right questions." Elena shook her head once. "They'll expect that. We stay together until the notebook reaches someone who can read it." She placed the notebook on the table between them. Pages of neat handwriting listed dates, names, and times. Marcus recognized none of them. A police cruiser rolled past the diner. The officer inside didn't look their way. Elena tucked the notebook away. "Bus to the next county leaves in 20 minutes. After that, we find a library with a scanner and send copies to 3 different addresses." Marcus paid the check. They walked to the station again. The second bus was older, fewer passengers. Elena chose seats near the rear exit. Marcus kept watch through the window. By midday, they reached a county seat with a public library. Elena scanned the pages at the copy machine, printed 3 sets, and mailed them from the post office next door. Each envelope went to a different state. They ate again at a bench in the square. The sun felt warmer here, away from the city towers. Elena said, "My brother always said the quiet ones notice more. You noticed the guards before I did." Marcus answered, "You smiled first. That's what made them move." A 3rd knock never came. No new cards appeared. Days passed in rented rooms and borrowed cars. Elena contacted an old colleague from the courthouse by payphone. The colleague confirmed the notebook had reached the right desk. Investigations began quietly. No public announcements. No arrests on the evening news. One afternoon, Elena received a plain envelope at a post office box. Inside was a single sheet. Case closed, records sealed. No further contact required. She showed Marcus the note, then burned it in the sink of their current room. The smoke curled upward and vanished. They stood on a different platform weeks later, waiting for a train that would take them back toward the city, but not all the way. Marcus still carried the torn card halves in his pocket. Elena looked at the approaching train and said, "We can ride this one without looking over our shoulders." Marcus nodded. The doors opened. They stepped inside. The city rush resumed around them, ordinary and unchanged. Elena's hand brushed his once. Steady now, no need for words. The tension that had lived between each heartbeat eased into something quieter, something they both recognized as the start of ordinary days again.